Are you ready to figure out how to master your money? Because if you're going to get into business, monetize your ministry, take that idea and bring it to life, you got to figure out how to manage the money you have now and the money you will have then. Well, today's guest is going to talk to us about that. We're going to learn a lot from her, her story of starting a business, and her tips on the things you need to learn to do with your money. Let's go.
Welcome to the Monetize Your Ministry podcast.
And you get a chance to interact with them. To me, that's full-time ministry.
Did I have to? Because tax without business is like a thief. It brings in itself and then it opens.
I want to provide content and things that are going to help change lives, and I simultaneously want to receive a blessing from that.
Now here's your host, Kymone Hinds.
All right, this episode is one that I had to do because so many people I've interviewed and talked to said, I need to have some advice from someone who is a financial guru, someone who can tell me how to manage this money and how to set up myself so that when I make money in business, I know where it goes. And I could think of no one better than today's guest, and she is my friend, financial management specialist, Prudence Rufus. Prudence, welcome to the podcast.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here. Like, I've watched the evolution of the podcast and you've had some great guests. So to be invited is such an honor.
Awesome. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to talk about money. And a lot of times when we talk about money, we talk about it in a very low, people feel a little bit weird talk about money. But no, Prudence is going to talk about money. She's going to give you the game and we're going to have fun today as we talk about this. But let me introduce Prudence to you, just give you a little bit of her bio, and then I'll let her share some stuff about herself. Prudence is passionate about empowering business owners from wide-eyed startups, that's some of us, to established companies seeking to scale new heights. She offers personalized coaching, helping clients to navigate budgeting, income forecasting, and even, here comes that word, taxes. Her goal is to equip entrepreneurs with the financial tools and the strategies they need to run their businesses efficiently, freeing them to focus on achieving their dreams and living a fulfilling life. Prudence believes that financial literacy should not be a mystery. I would say that differently, right? Financial literacy should not be a mystery. She breaks down complex financial concepts into easy to understand steps. She has over 25 years experience as an analyst, a banker, and a consultant. So Prudence brings a wealth of real world knowledge to the table. I'm so excited, Prudence, that you joined us today. We're going to talk about what we need to know as we're starting a business, as we're growing a business, and as we're scaling a business. Today, we want to talk about all those steps and your own journey of monetizing your ministry. So Prudence Rufus, before we jump into all of that, what's something about you that even people who think they know you would be surprised to learn?
Ooh. There are two things that come up. One, I play classical piano. Yeah. And two, I swam competitively for a few years of my life.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Prudence, you don't, I didn't know that. And we've been connected online for a while. Yeah. Classical piano,
like the Bachs and the Beethovens and the Referrals. And yeah. That's
okay. Me. Was that like your parents put you into music as a kid? Like, how did that?
Now, that's exactly what happened. I am a product of West Indian parents.
Yes.
And then my music teacher was this woman from England, like this very conservative human being from England. And she had me playing and reading the music and all the things. And I hated it at points. And then I got a teacher probably when I was about 15 or 16. They moved me to, my parents moved to New Jersey, and I got a teacher, and he was this good, tall, good looking Black man. So after that, when I tell you I practiced every week,
that's funny.
Every week. So yeah, I played classical music. I played for church for a little while, but then after kids came around, that kind of took a backseat in my life. But I still play for pleasure.
So Prudence, I think you're a good example today, and I'll say this now, and I'm sure it's going to be fleshed out. You're someone with a lot of talents, a lot of skills, a lot of interests, and a lot of people who I talk to, a lot of folks listening and watching this podcast, that's where they are. They have a lot of different skills, and they wonder, which one do I choose, which one do I lean into, and maybe through your story and your journey, they'll find some clarity on how they should go about zeroing in on things and then taking some next steps. So I'm glad you shared that you don't just have one talent. You got a few of them, and you have to figure out which one of those to lean into.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I said that's been a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't teach my kids piano. I pay for somebody else to teach them. Wow. And their interests develop as they would have normally developed for someone. I have no desire to be paid for piano playing. None. It is my hobby. It is just something I love doing.
This is going to be a good one. Now, Prudence, I don't want to. This is going to get me a whole lot more viewers, a whole lot more people to subscribe. Where's Prudence from? Because this always helps. Where were you from?
I was born in Jamaica.
You see, there we go. That's about 10 more subscribers right there.
There we go. Right? Yeah. Yeah, I was born in Jamaica. Lived there midway through my high school years. My parents moved to New Jersey, and of course, I moved with them. So I finished up my high school in New Jersey. And then when high school was finished in New Jersey, I moved to Georgia. Or they moved to Georgia and I moved with them. Gotcha. And my life has been kind of settled in Georgia ever since. Gotcha.
My wife is from Jamaica. So I knew that I needed to give the shout out to the fact that you're from Jamaica. That'll make sure that you got all the, because a bunch of folks are probably like, yeah, now I'm gonna pay attention a whole lot more now, right? So
I'll be dignified. I won't do the dance or anything like that. I'll just say I'm from Jamaica.
There we go. All right, so this podcast is the Monetize Your Ministry podcast. So I like to ask all of my guests, when you hear the word ministry, what's your definition of that?
Ooh, ministry for me, by definition, triggers thoughts of this is something you're called to do, and this is a gift of yours that you get to share with humanity, right? So someone who, let's say, is a good seamstress, that person, it could sew for themselves, and that's perfectly legitimate, but they could also choose to use that ministry to bless other people. And sewing for yourself is one thing that makes it a hobby. But for me, in my mind, when you decide to share it with the world, or when you feel called or compelled, or when you can't run away from sharing it with the world, I think at that point it becomes a ministry.
I like that. Feel called, compelled to share it with the world. So let's talk about yours. Then we're going to kind of turn a corner, and we'll still get the journey in here. But financial management is your area of expertise, the area that you have built your business on, Master Your Mint. When did you first get this interest in money management, and when did that come to you? Like, kind of talk to us about how far back this goes.
So as a child, my dad sold insurance. And so there was always the conversation in the household. I was his secretary. So whenever he had calls to make, he would give me a list of, names and numbers, and I would get them on the phone, and I would get these people into the conversation with him. So, but what would happen after that is that I would sit with him as he was having the conversations with people about how much money they made, how much money they spent, what their financial needs were, what their needs of their family were after they died, right? Because that's what insurance is about. So there were lots of conversations around money in the household. There was also a space where my father would give me the bills, like the paper with the bills, and give me the checkbook, and I would write out all the checks for the bills and then give them to him. He would sign them. I would put them back in the envelopes, mail them, and send them out.
How old were you at this time? Like, give us a range.
Maybe 8 to 10, somewhere around. I was pretty young.
Writing out bills and stuff.
Yeah, I was writing the check. So if the bill came and it was, $100.32, I would, you get a check, you write the date, who it goes out to, the amount, you actually write it out, $100.32, and then, 100.32.
Yeah.
Right. And then write the account number in the memo, and then give it to my dad for him to sign. It was a way of him like building efficiency into his life. that's really what it was. And, you know, I was there, and wherever my father went, I went. And that was just one of the things that like I did in the space of like making life easy.
So, okay. So early on, your dad really allowed you a window into his world and his world of work, and gave you responsibilities that I don't know how many of us are giving 10-year-olds the opportunity to write out the checks for our bills, right? I know I didn't, right? So now
I didn't for my kids either. Yeah.
I can't go back. But your dad really like, you know, like exposed that to you. Like, how far did you go with it? Did you follow a path of education that then built upon that? Kind of talk to us about where this journey goes.
I did. I actually went to school for finance. That's not where I started though, but that's where I ended.
No. Tell us where you started. You can't do that. You can't say that and not tell us.
Well, you know, when you start out at school and you're a West Indian child, it's one of three things: doctor, lawyer, engineer.
There you go.
Right.
Which one did you go?
I went the doctor route.
Okay.
Right. And then I was like, not really. So maybe physical therapy. Right. And so I navigated into physical therapy. And then there was a period where I actually got sick. And so when I got sick, I kind of reevaluated whether I wanted a career that was so physically strenuous. And so I actually looked into actuarial science.
Hold up. Yeah. Do you know that's what I studied for my first degree, right?
Stop it.
Yes.
Get out of here.
Degree is in. Yeah.
Did you do any of the exams?
Yeah, the first one. I passed the first one.
Too.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. Wow. I've never heard anyone else that I know like do that, like besides the people I went to school with.
Yeah.
I just say, okay, actuarial science. I've never heard that. So sorry, listeners and viewers. That was definitely like
that was a nerd moment.
Yeah. Sorry. And that's the people you want to tell people what actuarial science is, because I think it's good for people to know.
Oh.
Yeah. What that
actuarial science. Go ahead. Actuarial science is practical math in the nerdiest way you can possibly think about it.
It's people calculate your risk. Yeah,
they're calculating your risk. So you're looking at the chances of you being in a car accident, what your Medicare insurance needs to look like, what your retirement plan needs to look like, how much money you need to put in to get a certain amount at the end, and what's the risk of you living long enough to use that. Like it's what happens when you go to the bank and you deposit your money into the bank, and the bank decides how much interest rate you're gonna get, because they're calculating the risk of you pulling that money out. And so they're calculating how much money they can make, how long that much. It's nerdy mathematics.
Okay. All right, Prudence, let's get back. After this, we'll talk about this. So you said started off doctor, physical therapy. You mentioned actuarial science. Then like, where does this journey go?
Where does this journey? Right.
Into finance.
So ultimately what I did do is I finished with a degree in finance. That's what I did. And in the middle of that, now you have this degree with finance. You're like, what am I going to do with it? So my first job was working with a financial planner with MetLife. Loved that job. I think that job has marked me in such a way that for the rest of my life from then on, everything that I have done has had that kind of influence. Because what I did at that job was this planner that I worked for, he targeted small businesses, and he worked with, so when you think of like your bakery down the street or your ballet school down the street, he worked with these people. They would literally come in with a box of receipts. And when I say a box of receipts, I really mean, this is dating myself. Like it really was a box of receipts. And my job was to make sense of the receipts, to help them determine how much money they actually made, how much money they were actually spending, how much they could pay themselves, how much they could set aside for retirement, what their insurance planning needs to look like, what their tax planning needs to look like, what their estate planning needs to look like.
Wow.
It was phenomenal. Like I was just marveled, because I would go in with these people. They would have literally a bunch of confusion going on. And it was my job to make it make sense for them based on their lives, based on their goals, based on what it is that they wanted to achieve. And it was all individualized. So what happened for the Hinds family would not happen for the Brown family, because they had different needs.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is such a fascinating story. So our guest today is Prudence Rufus from Master Your Mint. And Prudence, you're helping us understand, like, this started your interest in financial management started from a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Then you talked about even going to school for something else, but being detoured back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I read in your bio, you talked about being a banker and some of the other things.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us then about getting into entrepreneurship, because, you know, a lot of times we're prepared coming out of school to work for someone else. No shade on that. But at some point in your journey, you started entrepreneurship. And I want to know, like, the first thing you started where you said, I want to do something of my own to generate income. Talk to us about that.
Ooh. Well, it probably wasn't on my own.
Okay.
Right? I also married this wonderful human being who has an entrepreneurial spirit of himself. And so he ran an insurance agency for a very, very long time. And as his spouse, I made sense of the finances of that. Well, there came a point in our lives where I had this corporate dream and I was working the corporate job and it was good until it started interrupting with the way that I wanted to parent. And I said, okay, this is not working for my mental health and for what I believe my children need. So I left the job. Well, in leaving the job, now I had more time for my hobbies. And at that time, the hobby that kind of dominated my time was photography. Because when you are a stay-at-home parent, it gets you out the house, it gets you talking to people. It was stimulating all my creative juices. It was doing that. I was getting a lot of my camera was getting a lot of invitations to birthday parties and baby showers and weddings, you know, and all of those things.
Were you charging?
No, I wasn't charging. It was a hobby.
Okay.
I was just doing it because I loved it. I loved doing it. People knew that I loved doing it. I had the equipment to do it. Looking back, the photos were terrible, but that's a part of the journey of, like, you know, evolving your ministry. And I was just doing it. And my husband said to me one day, he said, you're gone every weekend. You want new camera equipment. You probably need to make this a business. And I cringed because I didn't want to. But I also knew that in order for me to keep doing it the way that I wanted to do it, in order for me to grow creatively in the way that I wanted to grow creatively, I had to start charging. I was either going to start charging so I could grow as a creative, or I was going to have to stop doing it because it was no longer, it didn't make sense. I would become stagnant.
Prudence, I love that you said that. And I know we're this is not even the main business that we're talking about here, but what you said there is so important. I think a lot of times, and if you listen to this podcast and you watch this podcast for over and over, you'll hear a consistent theme where we always talk about pricing and charging for your stuff. And there's a resistance, right? Because people think if it's ministry, if it's something I want to do to help others, I shouldn't charge. But you just said something, and it reiterates something that others have said. If you don't at some point generate some income, there's a cap on your ability to get better in that thing,
yes,
to help people in a better way.
Yes.
And there's a cap on the length and the longevity of this thing, because after a while, you're going to run out of just the willingness to put your own money into that thing. And you'll be like, okay, this is done. Yeah. So it ends, and you actually will serve less people if you don't charge for it.
Facts. Yeah. And the cap is very, very low.
Yeah.
You know, because you still have to reserve time for what it is that feeds your family, what it is that gets you to be able to go on vacation. You still have to reserve time and emotional energy for that. So yes, there is a cap. If you want to grow in your whatever that gift is, you either have to be willing to charge for it so that you can have the resources to expand it, or you have to be willing to decide that the low ceiling is sufficient for you.
Yeah. Okay. So photography, which is so interesting, right? Because I think the first time we met, I remember photography and money management were both something. So when did you start monetizing as a business, the financial management part of it? Because you talked about the photography, like when did the second one kind of start up?
So I call myself a right brain, left brain person, right? So I'm the convergence of opposites, and I like it. Like, I can change the oil on my car, and I can put on a pretty dress, and none would be the wiser.
Right.
And so I've always had a space where I would maintain a small group of private clients that had some financial need, whether it was taxes, whether it was budgeting, whether I was serving on the finance committee at church, but there was always a space where finance was like still a predominant part in my life. Well, what began to happen to me is that as I began to grow in photography, I was in these photography groups and people would ask finance related questions and I would answer it. And after a while, it became like, oh, wait a minute. Like, she might know a little bit, right? Because they only knew me as a photographer. And those questions kept coming in. Eventually, I had to create a calendar so that people could book times to have conversations with me. Eventually, I had to start sending out invoices so that people could pay for the time, because now this thing was becoming its thing. And I think right around the period when you met me was where I was trying to juggle both. I was trying to run the photography business, hardcore. And I was like dipping my toe into being a consultant to entrepreneurs, which was different from the private consultation that I was doing before. And so that's kind of where you met me. Now I'm very clear. And it took some time. It took a few years for me to realize that, okay, photography is something I love to do, but it might have to take a backseat, it has taken a backseat to the financial services that I'm providing. Because in this phase of my life, I think this is where God wants me to be.
Yeah, this is such a good point. We're going to get into some financial strategies and tips for people starting businesses. So those of you who want that, just hang on. But for some others, this is going to be what you need. Prudence, I cannot tell you how many times I talk to people who say, but I could do this and I could do this and I could do this and I can do this, but which one do I choose? Which one do I choose? And people struggle. And here's where I feel the mistake that a lot of people make when they have multiple things that they can do. They wait and they don't do anything with either of them until there is some, I don't know, maybe a divine zap from on high that just says, go in this way. And that usually doesn't come, right? And so talk to us about, just your journey, because maybe there's a lesson from your journey. Like, what would you advise that person who feels I can go this way or that way, and they feel stuck right here? What would you say to them?
Right. You said something that I think is very important, where there's a space where you can do this, you can do A and you can do B, but you don't do either one, right? You have to actually do both. And do both, and it will eventually become clear as to where you need to go, right? What happens though is that there is going to be resistance. There is going to be a space where somebody is going to say, with the thing that you're about to put down, where somebody is going to say, but the Lord told me that you need to do this. But your conversations with God are leading you in a different way. And the best advice that I can give is that you just have to keep doing both, and one will actually bubble to the top. The cream will. I'm not saying that the cream will rise to the top, because I'm not negating photography. I love photography. I do. And I still take photography jobs because they bring me joy. I'm just not taking 3 or 4 jobs a week. I'm taking maybe 1 a month. Gotcha.
And I think just listening to your story too, Prudence, it sounds like you also listen to your potential audience, right? The people kept asking you and asking you and asking you. And it's only so long you can keep saying, no, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. Or you just, even for people who have a multiple thing, because I really like when people focus, but I don't want you to stay on the sidelines doing nothing until you feel that perfect clarity. Sometimes it's okay, do things, and your audience will tell you, yeah, that's the one, because they'll keep asking you questions on that. They'll keep asking for services on that. They'll keep asking for products on that.
Yeah. And it goes back to the same thing that happened with photography, how I ended up monetizing photography, is that you get to a space where you have to make a decision that you want to grow in this particular area. So I made a decision that I wanted to grow in the way I served people with finance. And in order for me to be able to do that, I needed to focus on it.
I like that. I like that. So focus allowed you to serve the people that you were serving through financial management even better.
It allowed me to serve more fully. And even in a business, like I can do taxes, I can do budgeting, I can do forecasting, right? But there still needs to be, I can do insurance, right? I'm no longer licensed, but I used to be licensed to sell like stocks and bonds and stuff like that, right? So there's many spaces that I can explore financially in the finance world, but I still need to make a choice. Like, who am I going to serve? Because in order for me to serve that crowd well, I have to decide I'm going to focus on how I want to serve that crowd.
Yeah, I like that. I think sometimes it's just giving ourselves time and grace for the thing that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And being okay with imperfection.
Yeah. Ooh.
Like knowing that whatever you started out doing today, 10 years from now, you're going to look back at it and wonder, who paid me for this?
Yeah. You said it earlier about your pictures, your first set of pictures.
Yes.
You wouldn't have, and I'm going to say this, you wouldn't have Master Your Mint if you didn't start there and allow yourself to grow.
Yeah. You have to start.
Yeah.
You have to start, and you have to start knowing that your start is the best that you have today, but it's not the best that you're going to be.
I like that.
And just be okay with the evolution that will come as a result of that.
Yeah. All right. So some people have been waiting for this, Prudence. You are our financial guru today, right? Prudence Rufus, our financial guru. There are some people who are getting into entrepreneurship or new to entrepreneurship. What are some financial lessons that you find that these people in that state, new or growing just at early stages, what are some of the lessons we need to learn? Some principles we need to have?
The number one thing that I would tell anybody, if you do nothing else, the number one thing would be to separate your business finances from your personal finances. That might mean that you have 2 bank accounts, but you might not be there yet. It might just mean that you have 2 different Cash App accounts. One Cash App account takes all your business income, and the other Cash App account takes all your personal income. If you just separate your business from your personal finances, that will make your life a whole lot easier, because you'll be able to more easily assess how much money you're actually making.
That's good.
You'll also be able to separate your expenses. So if you know that you're making, let's say, $1,000 a month, right? But your expenses are coming out of your personal account, some are on your credit card, and some are from that same Cash App account. You might not recognize that your expenses are outpacing your income because it's all kind of going from all kinds of other places.
Absolutely.
In addition to that, when it comes to tax time and you now have to document a record of what you've made and what you've spent, now you have to go skipping and jumping, hopping, skipping and jumping through all these different places to figure out how much money you made and how much money you spent.
You got to go find that shoebox, right?
Correct. Correct.
Right.
You went to Walmart and you bought something at Walmart that was business, but you also bought apples, bananas, and pears for the house. If you separated your business and personal finances, you'd have 2 transactions. One transaction would be for all of your business expenses, and the other transaction would be for your personal expenses.
Yeah.
If everybody did just that, everything would be 1,000 times easier financially.
Okay, so I do need to ask you this question because this came up before. I'm looking at getting started in business, right? And what I find a lot of people do is so can I start my business without having an LLC? Like, or do I need to go get an LLC? So talk to us about that, because
you don't need an LLC. An LLC protects your liability. That doesn't establish whether you're in a business. If you get an LLC, but you never actually make money or do anything with the LLC in terms of business, you don't have a business either.
Right.
So the LLC is not what determines whether you have a business. The IRS actually says if you make more than $400, that means if somebody pays you more than $400 in pursuit of business, you could be cutting lawn, cutting hair, doing eyelashes, baking cakes, whatever it is that you're doing. If you've made more than $400, then you need to report that income. You need to report that as income on your tax return. That's what the IRS says.
See, I like that because I think this is my theory. Like a lot of people, they'll do all of this stuff. They'll go get a logo, get a LLC, get a website, be on social media. But what they're missing is that income piece, right? They're not generating income. And I think for some people, so watch the challenge might be, okay, I go do all of this stuff, and then that thing that I set up, no one wants to buy it. And then I'm stuck with it. And it's like, what if you, and then what you're saying to sounds like it's liberating. I heard someone call hobby a business, but like I don't know what the correct term is. But you take the venture, you gain income, you see if there's viability, and then you go register it. But to your point, even from day one, separating those things. Yeah. How are people paying me? It goes into this bucket, right? Whether it's a different bank account, and I pay out of that different bucket from my personal, and that can get us started. And we see, hey, this works. It doesn't work. And I don't want to have a LLC for something that's probably very limiting in the name itself that I'm not going to do. So
yes, that's exactly it. Just start.
Yeah.
Just start and fine tune the details as you go along, but just start and determine whether you have a viable business that people are willing to pay for.
Yeah. All right, Prudence, give us some more financial game. I know we should pay you for this, but we got you on the podcast and you're recording, so you might as well answer that, right? Like, what else? Give us some financial tips for newbies, people who are just, maybe we started making some money. What are some tips for us?
Okay, so now that you know exactly, now that you've separated your personal and business finances, the next thing you have to do is determine how much money you're actually bringing in and how much money you're actually spending. The fancy word for that in the accounting world is create a profit and loss statement, right? We could call it that, or we could say, write down on a piece of paper how much money you made every month, write down on a piece of paper how much money you spent every month, determine whether you've made a profit or a loss for the month. I think if people do that on a routine basis, you'll, one, begin to realize whether the business is viable or not, right? Or whether you need to make changes. Those changes could be that maybe you need to charge more. Those changes could be that maybe you need to spend less. It could go in either way. When you're ready to make investments in the business, so let's say you need to buy a new piece of equipment, you're able to look at the numbers and say, I started this business a year ago, month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I didn't make any money, but now I want to make an investment. But because you are analyzing your numbers, as you begin to think about the investment, you will naturally also begin to think about whether that investment can make you more money. Will it make your life easier? Will it make more money? So creating those statements. The other bonus that happens with those statements is that the IRS only taxes you on your profit. So you will know your profit. If you only report your income, your tax debt will be much higher. And income could be, even somebody with a 1099 is considered a business, right? So you're a consultant for a company, they give you a 1099. That's your income. You offset that income with your expenses. Difference between that is your profit and your loss. The IRS only taxes you on your profit. So if you're not keeping track of your expenses, you're paying more taxes than you need to.
That's good. That's good, Prudence. And there's a philosophy on money where I only look at my money when I have money, right? So if I think I'm not making enough money in my business, I don't look at it. I bury my head in the sand. How often should someone getting started, new into business, or even growing their business, look at that profit and loss, the difference between their income and their expenses? How often should we look at that?
That's a depends question, right?
Okay.
If you're established, you should look at it at minimum once a quarter. And you need to look at it at minimum once a quarter because quarterly taxes might be due for you, right? So at minimum once a quarter. If you're starting out, you may need to look at it project by project. So you may need to say, okay, I am baking 10 cakes. And if I'm baking 10 cakes, the flour, the sugar, the baking soda, the salt, all of that cost me X number of dollars. And I'm going to sell it back for X number of dollars. And I spend this amount of time on it. How profitable is that project? So depending on where you are, you might need to look at it project by project. You might need to look at it week by week. Month by month is the ideal kind of sweet spot where you look at it and say, okay, this is how much I made this month. This is how much I spent this month. This month was profitable or this month was not. And sometimes it's not profitable, and sometimes not being profitable is a good thing because it's an active choice. When it becomes troublesome is when you think you're profitable and you're not.
That's good. That's good, Prudence. All right. I don't want to keep getting more financial advice from you for free, but you're going to tell us how people can connect with you. But I want to ask this question. So you're in the financial management space.
I am.
Tell us, how do you get clients, and how would you tell new people that's getting started monetizing your ministry? What are some tips on how to go about getting people to do business with you?
Ooh, okay. So most, all of the people that I have conversations with have a business in some way, shape, or form. Now, some of our conversations are just about business, where we just talk about the business finances. But because as an entrepreneur, especially if you dare to be a full-time entrepreneur, the money you make in business also pays your lights, your gas, buys clothes, sends you on vacation, pays for your car insurance. Because some of that business money is also paying you, some conversations we also talk about business and personal finances. How do I get clients? The truth is, people refer me.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's happening. I have a conversation with somebody. They feel empowered by that conversation. They've begun to trust me, because when you're having conversations about finance, it's a very intimate space, and so they have to have a lot of trust, because I'm seeing behind the scenes of the not pretty. I'm not seeing the highlight reel on Instagram or Facebook. Yeah. I'm seeing the like not pretty stuff. Yeah. And so people, once they get that kind of trust, they then go and have conversations with their friends, with their other business owners, and say, okay, if you have this question, go to Prudence, she'll answer it. You can find me though on masteryourmint.com, and you can book a call and we can have a conversation.
And I love that. I think you bring up a good point, right? So I'm gonna put the website up so that those who are watching can find it. Masteryourmint.com. I love to put it up on the screen so that people who are watching this, yes, and that you can go to that website, masteryourmint.com. But you bring up a good point. I think for a lot of people, we see the folks who are online sharing content, on being active on social media, and all of that is important, because I think this is also important for your business. But I think what we don't realize sometimes is a lot of business people who are doing business aren't doing it there. They're doing it in conversations.
Yes.
They're doing it in 15-minute, 30-minute calls, hour-long calls. They're networking. They're also making themselves referable. That's the term I want to use. Kind of talk to someone about that, because there may be someone who is watching this right now saying, Prudence, I don't want to do all that social media stuff. I don't want to be TikToking and all that stuff. But I want to build a business based on the what God has given me and how I want to serve people. Give me some tips on how to make myself referable so people will feel comfortable sending other people to me.
We go back to that term ministry, right? Like monetize your ministry. So ministry for me means that you're doing something you love to do, and you're doing it for the masses. Well, the masses start with one person. You don't just, start your business and you're talking to 10,000 people. At least not most of us do. Most of us start because we're having a conversation with one person who might be a friend, who might be a colleague, who might be, in our circles. And then that evolves into a business conversation. If you're working your ministry and if you're doing it well, I think people will naturally want to have the conversations about how they benefited from your service, how they grew from their experience with you. And as they're growing from their experience with you, they will tell people who are in similar situations as you are. So they may not make a Facebook post about you. They may not do that. But what they may do is when they're sitting around talking with their friends, and their friends say, yeah, man, I didn't make any money this month. I know it looks good on Facebook, but I didn't make any money this month. And they're like, okay, well, you know what? I've been working with this person, Prudence. Give her a call. She'll support you. She'll answer your questions. That's how it happens in casual conversations. Same thing happened with me in photography. Same thing is happening here in Master Your Mint, is that these are just casual conversations. What I know is that likes are not dollars. They're not dollars. And there are plenty of people out there who have very low Instagram followings, but very fat bank accounts.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. And by the way, it might be vice versa as well.
It could go vice versa as well too. Yes. There is a space where your social media work does have an impact on your income, but those are questions to answer when you start running your numbers, when you start looking at your profit and loss report. I know one of the reports that I do with some clients is that we look at, okay, they want to make, let's say they want to make $10,000 a month. So they need to know what their conversion rate is. So you need to say, okay, if you have 12,000 followers, you know that of your 12,000 followers, approximately 10% buy from you. And of that 10%, they spend X number of dollars. So if you want to increase your income, then maybe you need to spend money increasing your following so that you can match those numbers. That was really, really nerdy.
No, that's good. I like that. But I mean, it's like, I mean, we're talking about the person master your mint. You got to know your numbers.
You got to know your numbers.
Now, this is so good. So again, part of what I just heard is that heart for ministry, serving people. It does bless your business because people realize you serve me well. And even if I didn't pay you, if I find someone who has the problem that you solve because of your heart and you doing a good job, because I think let's not detach ministry from excellence, because you did a good job for me. I'm going to refer someone else to you.
Correct. Absolutely. I think the other thing startups and new businesses need to dissociate is that your friends are obligated to buy from you. They're not. They might not be your client. In my work, the work I do is so intimate. So if I don't have that, sometimes it goes both ways. Sometimes it's that I have a deep connection with a friend. And because I have a deep connection with a friend, I need to stay out of their money business. And there are also times where, because I have a connection with them, then I can be in their money business. But your friends aren't necessarily your clients. They may not need your services. And to be at peace with that.
That's good. That's good. That's good. You just freed someone right there, Prudence. All right. I want to get you out on this last question. But before I give you this question, tell people again your website and where they can follow you online so that they can, because some people watching this, you're getting started in business, you're growing your business, and you don't know how to handle that money. Prudence is your person.
Awesome. Awesome. So you can find me at masteryourmint.com. That's my website. And I believe that your creativity needs financial brilliance, right? So you'll see that on my website, right? So masteryourmint.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at masteryourmint. I'm there. And I have a Facebook group. It's called the Master Your Mint Community.
Oh,
so
come on now. I love the branding, by the way. And I'll just say this. Love your website. Really good job. Really
Thank you.
I went to the website. Y'all need to go there, check it out. And go ahead and just follow Master Your Mint at Master Your Mint on Instagram.
Thank you. I found an entrepreneur who excelled at building websites. And she built this website for me that I could talk about. I could see it in my head, but I didn't know how to put it together. Good. And she operated in her ministry, gave me that website.
I love it. I love it. All right, Prudence, here's the last question, right? This is going to be the hardest question I've asked you. What's one piece of advice you would go back and give yourself at a critical stage in your journey that would have helped you at that stage? And you can pick whatever stage you want.
This is a constant stage, including now, is to have more courage. To have more courage, to be okay with saying and doing the thing that scares you, that scares me. You know, being in business, being an entrepreneur is an act of courage. And a lot of people admire entrepreneurs. We're like, yeah, she's just doing her thing, or he's just doing his thing. It is an act of courage, and it's a constant act of courage. And I would tell myself, keep doing it. Keep being brave, keep showing up, keep doing it. Don't stop.
Yeah. I love it. Listen, our guest today was Prudence Rufus. She's going to help you master your mint Those of you who are thinking about, on the fence about if I should start, Prudence is giving us enough wisdom and just from her own story and her own expertise, share with you how you can get started. I want you to share this, right? Make sure you share this episode. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe to the podcast. What are you waiting for? And number 3, make sure you take what you've learned here and take what God has given you, your ministry, your ideas, and go bring them to life. Let's go.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Monetize Your Ministry podcast with Kymone Hinds. For more information, visit our website at www.monetizeyourministrypodcast.com. That's www.monetizeyourministrypodcast.com. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please share this episode with someone who needs it. Let's increase our income and impact.